Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Elise Adler, Director of Events for Parnassus Books, and we're delighted to share tonight's event featuring such an amazing author, Ashley Herring-Blake. And she's here tonight to celebrate the launch of her new title, Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Now, remember that you can buy copies of Delilah Green Doesn't Care with signed book plates from Parnassus Books. Easy for me to say. So we're going to go ahead and put the link in the Facebook comments and in the description of YouTube to place those orders. Now tonight, you can ask questions and you can put those in the Facebook comments or the YouTube chat. And we are especially excited because Ashley is in conversation with her friend and fellow fabulous author, Meryl Wilsner. So it's a pleasure to turn it over to Ashley and Meryl.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good. Happy book birthday.
Thank you.
It's very
Thank
exciting
you.
as always.
Yes, it's been fun.
Yeah, how are you feeling about it? It finally being here.
Yeah. I'm excited. It's been a fun day. You know, you get like the onslaught of social media love and posts, and so that's always really fun. I think it's a bit of a mixed emotions for me today. I've always been like, I've always said in the past, like, oh, I've never stressed about book birthdays because, you know, my part's done. What can I do? And that's really how they've been in the past. And today, for some reason, I've been a little stressed. So it's been a little bit more, I think maybe because it's my first adult. And it's also like the beginning of a series. So it's kind of like setting the precedents for like, you know, the next 2 books that I'm working on. I think there's just, there's just some varying factors. I think that's made it a little bit more, but also good. So it's like a lot of mixed emotions, I think. Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that sometimes publishing can sort of make you feel like you're not allowed to have any bad emotions on your book birthday. So I'm like proud of you for saying like, you know, it's
saying it.
Bit of a mixed bag because I think it is. I mean, we're human. Like some things are great and some things aren't. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. So it makes sense
and anticipation, you know, you build it and build it and build it and build it. And then once it's finally here, it's wonderful, but it's probably not like the confetti covered.
It's not literally like your biggest dream that you could come up with coming true.
Like I had to go to work today. I didn't take off.
Oof.
You know, I'm a teacher, so I'm dealing with students all day who had no clue that it's my book birthday for an adult queer romance that they're not allowed to read. You know, so you know, there's that. I'm dealing, you know, just tons of other things in life. And so it's like, oh, I still have to like function today. But it's wonderful to be here and relax.
Yeah, I'm very impressed that you didn't take today off because I already took today off. Not specifically for your book birthday, but
it was for me. Just go ahead and say it.
Yeah, no, it was just for you, just to prepare for this all day today.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I cannot imagine. But no, I was very glad that I didn't have anything and I could I just have to focus on the event tonight. And the fact that you had a whole ass book come out and also we're teaching blows my mind.
Yeah. I think in November when Astra comes out, I will take off.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. So lesson learned, but but it's been good.
Good. Well, you mentioned this in your last answer, but this is your first adult book. Did you always know that you've written how many YA/middle grade books?
I have 3 YAs and 3 middle grades. So this is my 7th solely authored book, and I have a YA anthology as well that I helped edit. But yeah, so what was did I always know?
Did you always plan to, you know, sort of shift into writing adult?
Yeah. I don't know at the very beginning if I thought I would, but as I kind of got older, you know, I decided that I kind of started thinking, you know, I'm reading a lot more adult. I'm identifying with a lot more adult characters. And while I love writing YA and middle grade, I started feeling like feel like I had a very specific purpose for writing my YA in middle grade. Like I wanted to write books that I had needed as a kid. I loved like the possibility and the whimsy, especially of middle grade. And then I started to realize that I'm not really sure what else I really want to say to that audience, or what I even have to offer for that audience anymore. And I'm not saying that that's totally done now. It just was for the moment. I was like, I'm not sure what my next path there is. And as I kind of, was getting older, I was like wanting to explore some themes that kind of were, unique to being actually past that adolescent age and into adulthood, which by the way is no less messy, and you don't know what you're doing at all. So I don't think it's that. It wasn't that I wanted to write people and characters who had it together, because I mean, if you've read this, you know that these people do not have it all together.
That's not how I would describe them.
No. So, but I think I just wanted to kind of write about some themes that were more applicable to what I had more recently experienced, or, was even currently experiencing. So yeah, but it took me a while to figure out what an adult I wanted to do. Like, because I enjoy all kinds of contemporary. Like I like writing, I like reading. Every now and then I'll find a literary I really love, if it's like really kind of more engaging. Like I love, I like reading just regular contemporary fiction, like something you'd find like Reese's Book Club or something like that. I like, women's fiction, or, I mean, for lack of a better term, just that kind of that deals with, kind of, middle age, being a person in their middle age. Like I like stuff like that. Sometimes it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in. And obviously I love romance. So I think the pandemic kind of sealed it for me. I was like, everything's terrible. So that's when I kind of landed on romance, and I have just absolutely fallen in love with it, like writing it. I've always loved reading it, but so
I'm someone who hasn't had to decide where to go and have always been like just in the romance sort of lane. I'm very glad that you landed in romance. Thank you. Yes. Please continue. I love that.
I'm happy to be here.
And something that you said about that, your kidlit books, you felt like you were writing books like, that you needed as a kid. I feel like that sort of gets said a lot. And when like talking about YA and middle grade. But I think it can also be said as adult, like just because, I'm older doesn't mean I don't need to see, myself represented here. And so that's sort of, at least for me, that is still part of why I write what I write anyway. Because I need to see the stories that I'm writing, I guess.
Yeah. I think was it Toni Morrison who said, write the book you want to read? Like if you can't find the book you want to read, then write it. And I mean, I think that's true. Like, I mean, one reason why, like when I first wrote How to Make a Wish, which is my first queer young adult book, I only have one book that's straight. And that was my debut, Suffer Love. And so then when I was starting to write How to Make a Wish, I was like, well, I was a baby bi. Like I was just, because I'm late in life realizing who I was, like just, hey, coming out to everybody right now, in case you didn't know, I'm, but anyway, I'm sure everybody already knew that. But so, I was really processing that, and I was entrenched in the YA world at that time. So I was like, well, I want to write that book that could have maybe helped me, have some self-actualization, self-realization a little earlier. So that's what I did with How to Make a Wish. And then with Girl Made of Stars, that was part of in that as well, but it was also precipitated by the Brock Turner case and with Stanford and just pure rage on it. That was a rage book, like that I don't even remember writing, honestly. Like I'm like, I have no recollection of writing that paragraph or chapter, no idea. So that's kind of where that one came out of. And then my middle grade was definitely like, well, okay, I wrote the YA of a teenager needing the book that now, like, let's go even younger, because that's when you really start realizing those things about your sexuality and whose hand you want to hold and whose hand you're interested in holding and dream about holding and not holding. And, I mean, that's really when that starts coming out. So that's when Ivy was born. And then the books that preceded that. And then when I was getting into adult, it was just never a question that I was going to write a queer story. And then particularly in adult romance, which I know we've talked about this before, but which is a little bit behind YA in terms of,
I think so for sure,
of queer stories, especially, just so queer stories. And I think that they're definitely catching up. I think FF has been doing a lot more and a lot better. And I think people are finally like, hey, these books are great and we want them.
Yeah.
But I mean, Delilah is still definitely a book that I wrote because I wanted to see more characters who were like me on the page. So in adult romance, so absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm so glad. I actually did earlier this month, I did an event with Alexandria Bellafleur with Parnassus as well for the last in her series. I have it, I think, right here. Count Your Lucky Stars, which is also, adult FF. And it is really just so nice to be seeing more of those come out every year. And you have another one coming out later, which this is obviously not about, but this is Delilah. Yes. Delilah is the first in a series.
Yeah.
So
which,
you have two.
Yeah. And just to like have a little snippet out there, like Astrid's story is really the one that most closely resembles my own, like with her kind of journey into queerness, because obviously Astrid's queer, so she doesn't know that in Delilah. And probably most people will read her and be like, what? But that's, I think,
I don't know.
Story.
I feel like at least some people will read it and be like, yes,
right.
honey.
Well, I'm kind of also of the opinion that everyone's just a little bit queer. But
I try not to be, because I try to be like, everybody, like everyone has their own sexuality and their own, and everyone, is attracted to whoever they're attracted to. But also then I'm just like, but you're not, but like not at all. Like you're not
at all.
Like
there's not that one person that you
like a little bit.
Like,
it's just hard. Like it's just very much not my experience. And so sometimes it can be hard for me to be like, I'm trying to give everyone space to have their own thing, but I just it doesn't compute within my own head anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So in talking about adult versus kidlit, do you have did you have a different process? Did your process change at all? What were some of the the differences of the experience of writing for the different age categories?
I think my process changed because I was just changing as a writer. Like my latest middle grade book was Hazel Bly and the Deep Blue Sea, which came out last May, paperback this May. Little plug there. And it was a beast to write. It was so difficult. The book I sold to Little Brown was not even Hazel Bly. It was a completely different story, completely different title. Sold it, announced it, and then I said, just kidding, I'm not going to write that book. I can't. And they were wonderfully patient and gracious and were like, okay. And they trusted me to come up with something completely different. And that became Hazel Bly, which a book that I was really proud of and very happy with how it turned out. But I think by the end of that, I was just ready for something completely different. And the way that I started books, I think, has just changed over the years. Like, I've been at this for a while, like a lot of people. And I think everybody would agree who does this as well, that your process kind of changes as you change and as you learn different things. So now I have kind of a specific way that I begin a book and what I feel like I need to know beforehand and what I send you all my synopses anyway to look at. And so, I kind of start in a different way than I say I would have with my first few books. But I would say that with Delilah, what felt just so different, and I don't know how to say this without making it sound like kidlit is too important and adult romance is not, and that's not at all what I mean. But I think because I think in Delilah, I grapple with a lot of, serious issues. I mean, there's death of a parent, there's isolation, there's toxic partners, there's a lot of things that I delve into, that isn't fluffy romance. But at the same time, it was like writing a romance felt very different than writing a YA or a middle grade, because my chief goal at the end of the day was to get these two people together. And that's just really freeing and refreshing and fun. And so I think that I just had more fun writing this book, even when I was delving into deeper issues. Like, to me, all of these people need counseling, which is great. Please go to therapy. Delilah absolutely needs that therapy. And she would agree. And that's, I hope she's getting that. So, but it was like, I think coming at it from where sometimes starting like a YA or a middle grade, and maybe people who write YA romance, because my YA were never strictly romance. They had a romantic element, and so maybe people who write YA romance would agree with this as well. But like when you're writing a romance, it's like, we know how this is going to end, right? And it's and everything is moving, every external plot point, every internal plot point, while they have their own stuff to deal with, which I think is important too, that's separate from the romance. Like, you know, everything is moving to get these people to smash.
You know where you're ending.
And so, yes. And so it's like, it was just really fun. And I have, honestly, I'm going to be honest, I've never experienced drafting a book from like the blank page as fun before. Like, it's always been my least favorite part. I've hated it. Like, I would like sit down at the computer and just be like, oh my God. Even as I loved it, I hated it. And like, honestly, I kind of love it. Even the drafting part with romance, so which is just very nice. it's different. Yeah.
No,
so yeah, I think that's the biggest change, is just that like I had such a clear purpose, and it was a fun purpose. Even when it was hard, I was like, okay, well, I just need to get these two people together. What needs to happen? So
yeah, I do find the books that I've written that I knew where they were ending, like not just oh, these two people are getting together even, but like for something to talk about, I knew like what is in the book the end of the epilogue, like the end of the epilogue. I knew before I put a single word on the page, like I knew this was going to be how this played out. And that was always that was very helpful to me to have that, like, okay, this is what I'm writing to. And I think in romance, it's helpful because yes, you know where you're going to end up. But then it can also be sort of hard. Oh, it does look like you're frozen. Ashley, can you still hear me? Okay, potentially my internet's dead, or Ashley's internet's dead, or maybe Parnassus' internet's dead. But if anyone's still watching me, this is very fun for me, and I love. Wait, I heard Ashley. Can you hear me? Thank you. Okay, Ashley seems to be the frozen one. So hopefully she's unfrozen. Can you hear me, Ash?
Yes, I'm back. Are
okay,
we still
good.
Here? Okay, sorry.
I was just talking to the camera like, I have no idea if anyone can hear me.
You like froze, and then I heard your voice every now and then, and then my whole Zoom went away.
Okay, well, you're back now.
Okay. And it says we're streaming, so I'm assuming this is still happening.
Yes, and I got a message that I could still be heard, so that you were the one who was frozen. So hello and welcome back.
Yay. Hi. Hello. Sorry, everyone. Hi.
We're doing it.
Yes, we're here. Good old technology.
The question that I was, I think, going to ask or getting into or discussion.
What were we talking about?
Was that like romance having that set end point can be, as we said, like really helpful to write to, but I think can also make it difficult in that you have to, like, readers also know they're going to end up together basically. So you have to make it an interesting enough story that it's fun, on the way there. I mean, we all know, like, a romance, at least it should end in a happily ever after, or it's not a romance, or happily for now. And so, I think you do have to kind of work at making your characters intriguing enough to where that doesn't feel too familiar, because you know how it's going to end. So you have to make it, unique to those people. Well, and without getting into spoilers, Delilah Green Doesn't Care has, and I've already told you this, my favorite third act breakup in the world, just because I feel like sometimes with romances and third act breakups, you're like, right, okay, they're breaking up. When are they going to get back together? Let's move on. But like, oh, this is like, I can't believe that they're breaking up over this. This is, this isn't something you'd break up over, but you have to do it because of, and I just love this one because even as it was happening, like, I'm reading it and I'm just going, I know that this is the third act breakup, and I know that this is what's going on, and I know they're going to end up together, but I'm like so upset because this is exactly what both characters would do, and just like very believable and well done. So congrats, way to go. As well as you.
I know we've talked about this, but I mean, and I know that a lot of people are experimenting with like not doing a third act breakup, and I'm all for reading those when they like, obviously your book, your debut didn't really have one because they were never
so
really
slow.
but and I'm all for reading those different forms and seeing how, like, what actually is the conflict between them, and all of that kind of stuff. So, but I love a third act breakup, and I know that some people are like, oh, I hate it, it's so stressful, but I love it, and that's fine if you think that. But I love it because I love seeing what these two people are struggling with as individuals. That's going to make them feel like they can't be who they need to be for that other person. And then overcoming that, or that other person crossing that bridge and saying, hey, you are worth this, or whatever it is. I just love that. It just makes it feel real to me, because I feel like that's real relationships, like we all have our shit that we bring that we need to, hurdle over to feel like we're worthy of love, or that we can give love. And, not that it's always like has to be so formulaic. I think there's definitely obviously other conflicts that they can face that isn't an actual breakup. But I just, I think that I like the third act breakup, and I like writing it too. I'm like, yes, suffer. And then
I do
triumph.
I do tend to like write. I feel like I like writing the suffering almost the best. Whether it's a third act breakup or just some kind of suffering for the characters. I do tend to like that the best. I'm generally team pro third act breakup. Sometimes I do feel like it's contrived. So I'm glad that there are.
When I don't like it, then like I want it to feel real.
But I do appreciate that. I feel like romance as a genre is sort of moving into, experimenting, as you said, with, no third act breakups. And I'm glad that has sort of become an option. I just read.
I've read a few books. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just read a novella, which didn't have any, sort of.
What was it?
Third act. It's not out yet.
Oh, okay.
It's called Wherever Is Your Heart by Anita Kelly. It is the third in their Moonlighter
I can't wait
series.
to read that. I've loved their first two of the series.
Screamed, screaming, crying, throwing up, kind of, for the third one. You're gonna love the first two. I think it comes out March 1st.
Okay.
There's no sort of third act breakup there. And I honestly, it didn't even sort of like enter my mind, which I appreciate as well. And I think so that's I think how it's well done, whether you have a third act breakup or not, it should just
well, there should be. I mean, obviously you don't have a book without conflict, unless you're just, I mean, there are some stories that don't have conflict, but they're, let's just call them what they are, probably erotica, and we all love those for their own purpose. But
there's I don't know, I do think, I just want to, just as someone who literally hates writing external conflict, I do want to say that I feel like there are romances can also be moving toward, at least some of them, like not having so much of the external conflict and having a lot of internal instead. And as someone who hates plot and plotting, I appreciate that. But sorry.
I mean, I think it really just depends on the characters in the hands of that author and how they're going to create those moments. Like I remember one of the first non-third act breakup books that I read was, I think it was Rebecca Witherspoon's Rafe, which is like a little novella about a nanny who works for this woman, and they end up, hooking up, and they don't have a third act breakup in there, but they're dealing with like this big conflict within like the family that they're trying to make together, like with her kids and her ex, and there's all this stuff. And so it's like, they're still kind of crossing this hurdle that makes their romance feel like, they've overcome something together, and so I think I really enjoyed that, and I mean, I guess I'm someone who, like, I also hate external conflict, like creating it. Like, I'm like, ooh, is this, I don't know. Like, can't they just feel and, can't kiss and
can't they?
But I think it's really difficult to write a book that will engage me, at least, without it. And I'm not saying it can't happen, but I am saying that I've read a lot of books that I'm like, I don't like, after they have sex, I'm not interested anymore.
Yeah.
It was a great sex scene. Wonderful. But what I think for me, and this is just me as a reader, I'm not even talking about me as a writer. Like, I need something to push me to keep me interested in them as individuals, and like and I think a lot of that can be just internal conflict. Like, what are they dealing with it as, just people who are humans. And
I'm also someone who, one of the reasons that something to talk about anyway is such a slow burn. I tend to prefer slow burns, just because I feel like there are a lot of times where a couple gets together, and then I'm like, okay, like I like the build up.
Yeah.
I like all of
I
the
do
sort
too.
of
Yeah.
anticipatory feelings of it.
Yeah.
And you have to do more to keep me caught after that, I feel.
Yes. Yes. Me too. Especially if it's like, I don't know, it's like, yeah, I mean, I want the sex and the kissing, and I'm like really ready for that. And let's be honest, I'm reading to get to that part. But then like every time I get there, I realize, oh, there are some other things. There's a lot more keeping me going here.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, which I think is tricky. I think that's the tricky part about romance, because, especially with steamier romance, I mean, and there's romance that doesn't, has fade to black and all that stuff, and that's all has a place. But like, where it was steamier, I feel like that's what I'm always like, I'm like heading towards, and so I think it's hard to write something that has a balance of all those things.
Yeah. And there's a place, for, fade to black or even not fade to black, and just like off, like just not mentioned sex scenes. I'm sort of considering experimenting in the like moving into erotica as well, and just focusing on the steamy scenes and not worrying about the other stuff.
Anyone who has read an early edition of your next book will tell you to do so.
Thank you.
Mistakes were made, everyone. Go pre-order it. Very steamy,
and yes,
from like page 3.
I was going to say I have an arc here.
What
I could actually check what page it is. No, I'm not going to. But that did actually remind me that I should say.
Love it.
There are links to both of our books in the, I think, Facebook comments and the YouTube description. And you can get actually signed Delilah Green Doesn't Care with a book plate in them, from Parnassus. Yes. And I do see we do have some questions. Feel free, keep dropping questions into the chat or the comments, or however it works on whatever you're watching on. And we might get to them we might drop to them at the end. It sort of just depends how we're doing. I feel like I should get back on track because I have a lot of questions written down.
But I will say, anybody who wants to know how do I write sex scene early in a novel and then keep the tension going throughout the book? Character study right there in Meryl Wilsner's Mistakes Were Made, October something.
11th.
11th. There you go.
Yeah.
So just want to throw that
Looks
out
like
there.
this.
There you go. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Even if I had to hide while you said it. Okay, back to you. Delilah Green Doesn't Care has a character who's a single parent.
Yes.
Because I was distracted by how pretty the cover was. I didn't know that going in, like just didn't read. Apparently I did not read anything about it because it's very clear on the back of the book.
Right.
But I don't want to say shocked, because I feel like shocked sounds like it was bad, but I was just like, oh, this is a single parent book. Okay, like let's go. Was that, you talked about sort of your process, and did you know that from the beginning that was something that you wanted? How did that sort of come about?
I'm trying to remember how I came up with that. I feel like, I don't know, maybe if I stare at Claire's picture, I'll realize what I was thinking. I think that it just felt natural for her. I needed her to be kind of a Bright Falls native homebody person. And I kind of started thinking about her path, and she just always had a kid in my head. I don't know. She just never didn't have one. And I think maybe one of the reasons why that intrigued me was that I wanted to write about someone who, I think in the book, I think they're 29 maybe when the book begins.
No.
And so, they're like, approaching 30s. They're not like in their early 20s where everything just feels chaos and like you're just constantly have no idea who you are. Not that any of these people know who they are in their 30s, but and I think that like writing a single parent was just something that I hadn't read a whole lot of in romance. Not that it doesn't exist. I'm sure it does. I just hadn't read it a lot where one of the main characters had a kid, and how that would kind of affect the whole thing. And then I was thinking about, then I knew that I wanted the kid to be kind of older. So then I kind of brought in like that she got pregnant when she was 19. And then that just really kind of formed who she was and how she kind of navigated in the world, and what she'd been through, So, and I was just really intrigued with Delilah coming into contact with this 11-year-old So I think that's also part of it was that I knew that obviously Delilah and Claire were going to have some conflict with each other at the beginning, you know, even though there was sexual tension and attraction. Obviously, Delilah and Claire are very different. And then, you know, and Delilah's very, you know, there's a wall there, obviously, with Delilah. And so I needed someone to kind of break through that wall with her. And Ruby, the 11-year-old, seemed like a natural person for her to connect with before she even really started connecting with Claire, like kind of as a way in, you know. And so like early on in the book, you know, Delilah has an interaction where she's still kind of honestly being a bitch to everybody. And but then she has this interaction with Claire and Claire's daughter Ruby, and Delilah kind of steps in to kind of de-escalate a moment that Claire's kind of losing it. And as a parent who's understands like you can love your kid and also want to strangle them at the same time, that was easy. It was easy for me to write that from Claire's perspective. And so then when Delilah kind of steps in, I could almost feel Claire's relief there. And then it kind of gave Claire pause and reason to be like, that's not really what I expected from Delilah. So, yeah. I mean, you can see how all these things are all like meant to push these people together, and they are devices, but they also just felt very natural for Claire to have a kid. Like I honestly just don't remember a time where she didn't have a kid in my head. And I also just wanted to write kind of a unique dynamic that I hadn't read a ton of.
No, yeah, I think it's perfect. I am obsessed with your book. You already know that. But that also gets into like, obviously there, you know, a little bit of like opposites attract, and like, you know, you said devices, I'll call them tropes. Do you have sort of a favorite or a variety of favorite tropes to read or to write?
Yes, I do. So, I mean, I love Grumpy Sunshine. I just love that kind of opposites attract dynamic. And I like other opposites attract dynamics as well, which I feel like the third one that I'm working on right now is also going to be, although it's not really Grumpy Sunshine. It's more like very confident disaster meets very unconfident disaster. So I'm kind of looking forward to smashing those two together. Iris, by the way, for those of you who know who Iris is, she's the confident disaster. And I like that. I like the trope where, like, you know, something, I don't even know what it's called, like fate encounter. I don't really know. Like, you know, like when like something happens, you meet and it's a disaster encounter, either like horrible one night stand or great one night stand. And then you realize that your one night stand is your new boss at your job, or, you know,
or your
like,
friend's mom, for instance.
Or your friend's mom. Exactly. And that's actually a little bit in Astrid's. She has an encounter at the beginning of the book, in Astrid's book, where she spills coffee. Well, no, coffee gets spilled on her, and she basically rips this person a new one. And that person ends up being a very integral person in a job that she's about to start. So, I mean, and the love interest. And, you know, I just love those kind of like, you know, ill-fated, but also fated meetings. What is that called? Does that have a name?
I don't know.
Star-crossed? I don't know.
I don't know. It's like, it's not like meet cute, but meet disaster.
Yeah. Anything with disaster in it.
I feel like we're just using disaster a lot.
Disaster over and over again. Fake dating. I mean, I know you and I have talked about this, and we both said this before, where it's like fake dating makes no sense on paper. Like when I actually think about it, I'm like, who does that? Nobody's going to do that. Even though I did have people tweet me one time being like, I fake dated my so-and-so to get away from this creepy person. I'm like, okay, fair. But I think most of the time it doesn't feel like it's something that would really happen. But then when I read it in a book, I'm like, well, duh, these people have to fake dates.
Clearly,
like, I mean, I'm totally trash for it.
They need a date to the wedding. So they
and they need their parents off their back. My Iris's book is also going to be fake dating, I think. So I'm excited about, and I also like that because it's like external conflict built in. Like, when is everybody going to find out that? So it's like easy to navigate with it. I mean, and I love the smaller tropes too. I'm always excited for Only One Bed, snowed in together, or some kind of disaster.
And any time of disaster, or just any time of like
where they're trapped.
Forced proximity. Yeah, forced
proximity
of any kind. Yeah, I'm here for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
With how much we're talking about disasters, Delilah is a little bit of a disaster. I love her. I'm petting her on her book right now. Some I feel like may call her sort of, you know, an unlikable female character. Not me, because I'm obsessed with her. But was it important to you to write sort of this, I think unpalatable is maybe a better term than unlikable, female character? Because I feel like she's sort of, it's not like, oh, write strong female characters, and so that's what you did. I feel like you wrote a flawed, real, sort of human being in a way that I don't know that there are that many sort of romance heroines who get to be like that, I guess.
Yeah.
So was that intentional? Was that important to you?
Oh yeah. Absolutely intentional from the beginning. I knew she was going to be very prickly, standoffish, very difficult to love. I mean, really, it started off from its very first inception as a very loose Cinderella. So I was thinking, what if I have a romance where Cinderella grew up with a stepmother who didn't love her because her parents died and her father had died, and there was a stepsister who, and so that's kind of how it all started. So technically, Delilah's a Cinderella here, but and Cinderella to this day remains one of my favorite fairy tales, because I think it just takes so much courage and bravery which is the same word, to take a risk on love after so much abuse and neglect, and not that Delilah was abused, but she was definitely neglected, and she didn't get the love that she needed as a kid, and she was very misunderstood. And so just thinking in what kind of person that would create in an adult who's also queer and dealing with that marginalization, and an artist, which we're all messes anyway, because us artists, because I think we just kind of see the world in ways that sometimes make it harder to make it through a day. I don't know the right way to say that.
I think that makes sense.
And so for me, like that was the only kind of person Delilah could have been, and that's who I want to read about. I don't want to read about some squeaky clean character who has it all together. And not that those can't be intriguing. I'm sure I've read books where there is a character like that, and I love them. But I don't want to write that character. I want to write the character that most resembles me, and that feels like makes true love feel that it truly is for anybody, and that no one is past being loved and receiving love. And so that's just kind of who Delilah became for me. Astrid is the same way. Astrid, and a lot of people were like, I don't know if I like Astrid or not, because she's very unlikable in the book, and I wrote her like that on purpose. So she's a mess. Iris is annoying and says whatever comes to her head. She's shut up, Iris. So but that's the kind of characters that I love reading about.
Yeah. I think my favorite characters, sort of across media, not just in books, are characters who are actively making bad decisions,
horrible choices,
just horrible choices.
Yeah, and
you love and root for them anyway. And I think that can be
finding
really
their
hard.
way through that, and that they realize, and that was part of Delilah. Not to be a spoiler, part of Delilah's whole thing is that realizing that she is a person who's worthy of that. Even with all her cactus-like exterior.
Yeah.
So
those are my favorite characters. Are just the ones who are you are making so many mistakes here, and this is such a bad idea, and I can't believe you're doing this, and I love you with my entire heart. And I feel like Delilah is a little bit one of those, of just I can see all the ways in which you're going wrong here, and I love you anyway for this. So we have a question in the chat, which we've kind of already talked about, but it goes along with my question of what's coming up next for you. And this is from Jane, and it says, are your next two books about all different characters, or is this going to be a series? Obviously, we've already talked about it, but if you want to talk a little bit more about what's coming up after Delilah Green Doesn't Care.
Yeah, so Ashley Parker Doesn't Fail is out in November. And I didn't even check today. The metadata was supposed to go onto retail sites for that today. The cover won't be there till next week, because I'm revealing it next Tuesday. But
I've seen it and I love it.
Yes, so I love it too. But so that the official description and everything should be up. Again, I haven't checked, but if it's not up, it should be up soon. But so yeah, it's about Astrid, and she is definitely having some life altering things happening to her, in terms of she just has a lot of personal realizations that she's going to be going through. It's actually set on a renovation home show, like a kind of home show you'd see on HGTV. Sorry, I have not perfected this blurb. This is a horrible elevator pitch. It's about Astrid, and anyway, I'm always terrible at tell us about your book. I'm like, okay, well, it's about a person who, I'm horrible at it. But anyway, so I really love it. Astrid, she's going to be, anybody who has already read the book, Astrid is very, she's a perfectionist. She's been raised by a very, how do I say it? Proper mother, single mother, had some loss in her life as well. So she's really dealing with meeting expectations. And this is about her journey of realizing that maybe everything that her life has become, she doesn't really want her life to look like that anymore. And in the meantime, she falls in love and with someone who she never thought she'd fall in love with. And that person's name is Jordan Everwood. So that is a new character. So you do get some new characters in the Everwood family, which is going to be based at the Everwood Inn, which is mentioned once, I think, in Delilah Green. So it's like this old inn that's like falling down. And so Astrid is hired to renovate it. And it's going to be on this renovation show. And Jordan is the granddaughter of the owner of the Everwood. And she's also a carpenter whose life has fallen apart. And so her family brings her back to Bright Falls to help with this renovation. And so you meet her and you meet her grandmother, Prue, and her twin brother, Simon. And then there's a whole crew that's on the show. And so there's a lot of new characters. And then, of course, Iris and Delilah and Claire are all in there, too. So I'm really excited about it.
Yes, as am I. And then after that, there will be the third one, which you've already said is Iris, but is still in the process of coming together.
Can't really talk about that one yet. Yeah.
And then again, I want to tell everyone who's watching, this is sort of last chance to put in questions. I have one more question and then a little game that I'm going to play, even though we're probably going to run a little long, but that's fine. So anyway, drop questions in the chat or the comment box as we go here. My last question is, what do you hope readers will take away from this book, Delilah Green Doesn't Care? And I feel like you sort of touched on this a little bit, but
yeah, it's really about, it's about second chances, and it's about finding where you really belong and finding home and a found family. And I think, I talked about this a little bit. I had an event with Kasoko Jackson last night, which was just really fun. And we talked a little bit about this, about how, this book is really my kind of love letter to queer communities and queer romance. So, and I think that the friend group in this book was just as important to me as Delilah and Claire were in terms of falling in love, because I really wanted to write a queer community that, as except for Astrid in the first book, but that's going to change in the second. Pretty much everyone is queer, and Iris calls it their queer coven, or she dreams of a queer coven, and really just because that's what a lot of times the queer community, we have to bond together. It's it's necessary for mental health and emotional health, and I really wanted to write a group of people who did bond together because of that identity, but also because of a lot of little things that made up who they were. So that was really important to me, and it's something that I want people to take away, is just the found friendships and the family that we make for ourselves is just such a huge part of our lives, and that those are choices that we can make and things that we can seek out and things that we are worthy of having and deserving. And then obviously, it's just about forgiving yourself, really, with Astrid and Delilah, there's lots of misunderstandings between them. So there's just lots of dynamics in this book that I was really had a lot of fun writing, and that were really meaningful to me, not just the romance, but all different types of relationships. Yeah. And how in all of those we're worthy of happiness and love.
I love that. That. Okay, I have a question from Mike of who was more fun to write, Delilah or Claire?
That's hard. It's like picking my children. Probably Delilah, just because she's just snarky, and honestly, that's why I love writing disasters, because they're just damn fun to write. It's just fun to write people who just keep making horrible choices. But Claire, I loved Claire as well. If it's funny, but before a book club little kit, my publisher made a we made a quiz, and so I made like a little quiz of like, which character are you? And I'm told I'm a Claire. So she's probably the one who's most similar to me. Like nothing in Delilah's life looks like anything like my life that I would have ever have been or tried or done. So I also kind of envy Delilah for her bravery and just taking off. And well, actually, I guess I did do that when I moved to Nashville. I moved to Nashville like just by myself back when I was 25, but I sort of did that. But I wasn't a photographer. And I did have more of a support system than she did. So, she really did that alone. So, Claire was definitely more the person who was most similar to me, but Delilah was definitely more engaging for me to write. But Claire was also really fun just in terms of being someone who's trying to navigate things that were very similar to what I navigate in my own life, while also trying to not lust after her sister, her best friend's stepsister, who she's supposed to hate.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good deal. Yeah. Okay, now on to the game show, which is that I'm going to give you a trope, and you're going to recommend your favorite romances, contemporary romances, any kind of romances, rom-coms, whatever, that has that trope within it. Okay. So we'll do it sort of quickly here. Yeah. I feel like this is sort of everyone's, or sometimes it seems like this is everyone's favorite trope. Enemies to lovers.
Yes, I have two for that. Yes, I have this. I have some already prepared. Meryl sent these to me ahead of time, so I'll be slightly prepared. My first one is The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. I love this book. It's about a wedding planner who has to link up, kind of join forces with her ex's brother or best friend. I can't remember. It's been a while since I read this.
I think it's brother.
Is it brother? Who she blames for breaking up her wedding. But then she has to team up with him to like make this pitch for this, to land this huge wedding account. And so it's, forced proximity, but also like they hate each other. And then obviously they fall in love. And it's just really fun and steamy also. And just, I love this. And I can't wait for Mia's second one, which I think is coming out very soon. This spring, if not earlier.
That book got me. So I have not been reading well during the pandemic. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I was not like reading at all. And The Worst Best Man, like I read in like a day. It was the first book that I read during the pandemic. Just got right through it. Yeah, I just pulled it up. And
so good.
Mia Sosa's The Wedding Crasher is coming April 5th of this year.
Yes, I can't wait for that one. Oh, it's gonna be good. And my other enemies to lovers fave is The Ex Talk, which I will write anything. I will read, not write, but I will read anything Rachel Lynn Solomon writes. Love her adult romance. This is her first one. It's about two kind of rivals at a radio station, like a local NPR station, who have to go on a show pretending to be exes. So it's kind of like reverse fake dating. Yeah. And also, they don't like each other to begin with, and then they obviously do.
I love books that take sort of a known trope and then twist it around. Like, instead of fake dating big exes. I love that idea.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay. Next is Friends to Lovers.
Friends to Lovers. Well, I'm gonna put up the queen here. People we meet on vacation. So if you haven't read this one, which I'm sure most of you have, well, you should definitely read it. I think this one was it's Emily Henry. She just has just a way. She just creates a whole atmosphere that from page one that you just completely fall in love with. And obviously, so is 3/4 of the world. And so like this one is just really great. It just chronicles over time these two friends who have been who go on vacation together. They've just done this since they were in college, since they met. It's a yearly thing. Until something happens to where they stop. They have to stop because everything gets awkward. You can probably guess what that thing is. It's just really great. And then you have to kind of see them come back together from that. And so I think like this, it's just so well done. I think it's really difficult to chronicle a relationship over years and years and years in a book. Yeah. And this is like a master class in that. So I think that's a really good Friends to Lovers one.
Good deal. Yeah. How about Slow Burn? That's what I thought you were gonna do.
I mean, come on. This is like the slowest of slow burns ever, right?
If you don't like Slow Burn, people who are watching, don't read something to talk about. It's my book, but don't read it.
It's super slow burn, but it's also really fascinating just to watch how these two people like continually like should be together, and need to let down their walls to just admit that. And a lot of stuff happens that's Hollywood based too, and a lot of other stuff that goes on. So it's just really, it's just really fun to watch these two come together and make horrible choices, like you said, until they finally did. So yeah.
That is a favorite. As we already talked about, fake dating.
Well, I have two for this as well.
That's my favorite.
Take a hint, Dani Brown. Talia Hibbert is also one of these authors that I will read anything she writes. I don't care if it's just chronicling the dictionary contents.
Exactly.
I will read it. And so this is actually probably my favorite of the Brown sisters books. If you've probably read this one. So this one, she agrees to fake date this dude Zafir because he needs to booster his he has like a charity that he's trying to,
it's like a charity rugby.
It's like for like kids.
Yeah.
So like for publicity basically. So it's a publicity stunt, but it's not one that's like, huge. It's like on a local scale, so but it's really great. I love Dani. She's bisexual and she's very, very proud of it, and very, very just a brazen kind of character, and which I love, and kind of a disaster as well. So obviously I think that's the word of the night, is disaster. So I love this one. Very steamy as well. Very steamy. And then I have to plug my release day twin. Fake dating. This one is fun because they're fake dating, but they're exes. They used to actually date, and now they're fake dating again, or they're dating again, but it's fake. So this is again kind of taking that trope and subverting it a little bit. And so this one's really fun. And and I know Kosoko, like one thing that he was really passionate about reading this book is that Black queer men deserve happily ever afters, and these two definitely get it, and it's super fun. So we should definitely read that one as well. Yeah.
Excellent. I got two more for you. Only one bed.
When you told me that one, I was like, I can't. It's like one of those tropes. It's like a smaller trope. It's not like the whole book's not about one bed, So it's like I couldn't remember like what scenes. What's the most recent book I read that has only one bed? But what does have only one bed is this one. So you should really pick this one up, because it does have only one bed. But I know a lot of books do. Kosoko's does as well. This has only one bed.
Nice.
Yes.
I don't have it next to me, so I can't hold it up. But All the Feels by Olivia Dade. Olivia Dade's also someone who I would read the dictionary if she wrote it.
I was looking at that one today, and I was like, "What does that fit into?" And I couldn't remember the only one
because it has the hero in it, like writes his own fan fiction, and so there's the only one bed trope, and he is like thrilled that there's only one bed. Like he gets so excited that there's only one bed in the situation. So it's just okay, I do remember that. It was sort of a play on it. Sort I love that book. Meta. Yeah.
Olivia Dade is also an author who's quickly become my auto-buy. Like I will also read anything she writes.
I'm obsessed with her. Also, she's also a lovely human. And then last one, and then we'll let everyone get out of here and we'll stop talking to each other. Is one that you said that you love, Grumpy Sunshine.
Oh gosh, I actually didn't get a book for that. Maybe I missed that one. Wait. Oh, hang on.
We'll just admire your rainbow bookshelves in the background.
Coming back. Right. I mean, London is a total grump, and Dahlia is a total sunshiny. At least she tries to be. She's also a disaster. Oh, look, twinsies. So yes, I love this book. It's funny. I have a funny history with this book that I've never really talked about, but I read this book in Pitch Wars because I tried to represent it as an agent. And obviously totally happy where Anita ended up, and am super thrilled to be romance colleagues with Anita. But that book is Anita is like ridiculously talented. It's just bonkers. So
you didn't notice.
Yes. There you go.
The book's dedicated to me. No big deal.
Yes, no biggie.
Read Love and Other Disasters. It's amazing.
Yes, everyone should read that book. It is wonderful and steamy and has a non-binary love interest, which we definitely need more of those. I'm
literally obsessed with it. It's everything.
Do it.
As is Delilah Green Doesn't Care, a book that I literally had to stop reading when I was drafting because I was like, I read one chapter and I went, this is too good, and then my writer self can't handle it right now, so I had to finish my draft before I could read the rest of it.
Highest
so
compliment.
so everyone who is watching, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Links to buy Delilah Green Doesn't Care with signed book plates from Parnassus, and also to pre-order Mistakes Were Made, which is my book, which is coming out in October, are in the comments, or they just
everyone needs to do
the YouTube description. Thank you, Ashley, for sharing your book birthday with me.
Thank you, Meryl, for helping me celebrate. It was wonderful.
This was lovely.
And thank you, Parnassus.
Yes, and
for
thank
having
you,
us.
Parnassus, for having us. And thank you, viewers, again for joining. So have a good night and happy reading.
All right, bye.